Footprints without feet. Question and answers. 1. Griffin was rather a lawless person. Comment. Ans. It is rightly said that Griffin was rather a lawless person. He was not a law-abiding citizen. A person who follows law and order of the country cannot think of damaging others' property. Griffin set fire to the landlord's house in order to take revenge on him and became a homeless wanderer by swallowing the rare drugs. He also robbed a shopkeeper of all the money he could find. He stole the housekeeping money from the clergyman's desk. He also attacked Mrs. Hall when she entered his room. He used his invisibility power for his own selfish motive instead of using it for the development and the progress of the society. All these activities and instances prove that he was really a lawless person. 2. How would you assess Griffin as a lawless scientist? Ans. Griffin was a brilliant scientist who had carried out experiment after experiment to prove that the human body could become invisible. He was a hard-working and determined person. Though he was intelligent but lacked common sense, he didn't want to use the invisibility power for the welfare of the society. He used it to satisfy his own ego and carry out satanic deed. A law-abiding scientist can never think of bringing any type of harm to the society. A scientist's work is to invent those gadgets and devices which can make the earthly existence comfortable and easy. Griffin could have used the invisibility power in decreasing the evils of the society. He could have also led a comfortable and respectable life in his country. He used the experiment in the wrong time of the year and he had to bear the consequences of it. Griffin swallowed the rare drug and became invisible to torment the innocent people. He was a criminal scientist who had no respect for humanity and for himself. 3. How did the invisible man first become visible? Ans. The invisible man, Griffin, first became visible when he accidentally stepped in some mud and left some footprints as he walked on the steps of a house in London. The footprints were visible to the two boys who followed them until they disappeared. After getting rid of the boys, he entered into a big London store to spend the night. There he broke open up the boxes and wrappers and fitted himself with warm clothes, shoes, overcoat and a wide-brimmed hat. Next morning, he was found sleeping by the store assistants, which was actually the first time he was fully visible. 4. Why was Griffin wandering the streets? Ans. Griffin was a brilliant scientist but a lawless person. His landlords disliked him and wanted to eject him. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the landlord's house. To get away without being seen, he removed his clothes. Thus, he became a homeless wanderer, wandering the streets of London in severe cold weather. 5. Why does Mrs. Hall find the scientist eccentric? Ans. Mrs. Hall, the lady of the inn, finds the scientist eccentric because of his strange appearance and behavior. She tries her level best to be friendly with him, but he refuses to talk to her. He excuses himself by saying that his main intention of coming to Epping is to find solitude. He does not want anyone to disturb him in his work, and moreover an accident has affected his face. 6. What curious episode occurs in the study? Ans. A clergyman and his wife are awakened by noises coming from the study very early in the morning. While they creep downstairs, they hear the chink of money being taken from their drawers. Hoping to catch the thief red-handed, they flung open the door suddenly, but to their amazement they find no one inside the room. They look under the desk, behind the curtain and even up the chimney. Yet they find the drawers open and the housekeeping money missing, which is the curious and extraordinary affair that the clergyman and his wife experience. 7. What other extraordinary things happen at the inn? Ans. The landlord and his wife are surprised to see the scientist's door wide open. Usually his room remains shut and locked. He becomes furious when anyone tries to enter his room. The opportunity seems too good to be missed. So, they peep around and find no one inside. They decide to investigate. They find the clothes and bandages lying about the room which he usually wears. They find the bedclothes cold, showing that the scientist must have been up for some time. Suddenly, Mrs. Hall hears a sniff close to her ear. Then the hat on the bedpost leaps and dashes itself on her face. Next, the bedroom chair springs into the air and charges at her. They run in terror towards the door. The chair pushes both of them out of the room, and the door slams and gets locked behind them. Mrs. Hall almost falls down in the hysterics. She convinced that the room is haunted by evil spirits and the stranger is responsible for bewitching her furniture. 8. How and why did Griffin came to the village of Epping? Why does Mrs. Hall find him eccentric? Once, after escaping from crowded London, Griffin took a train to the village of Epping because he wanted solitude so that he could carry on his work undisturbed. The arrival of Strange at an inn in winter was an unusual event. Moreover, Griffin had uncommon appearance. In spite of Mrs. Hall's attempt to be friendly, he did not respond. He told her that he had no desire to talk and that all he wanted was solitude. He did not wish to be disturbed in his work. For all these reasons she regarded him as an eccentric scientist. 9. Who was Griffin? How did he become invisible? Why did Mrs. Hall find him eccentric? Once, Griffin was a brilliant scientist. He had carried out experiment after experiment to prove that human body could become invisible. He consumed certain rare drugs and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass. This is how Griffin became invisible. Mrs. Hall found the scientist eccentric because he had arrived at the inn in winter, which was an unusual time for any visitor to reach there. Moreover, his appearance was that of a stranger. He did not like to speak to Mrs. Hall in spite of her attention to be friendly with him. He wanted to be left alone undisturbed.